Alrighty, hi everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's Master of Creative Writing webinar. Thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon. Joining us today, we have Associate Professor Jane Messer, who is the course director for the Master of Creative Writing. And we have two alumni students joining us this afternoon to answer all of your questions, which will be really amazing. So we have Cassie Cochran and Claire Katazunius. So the way that today will work is Professor Jane Messer just has a short presentation to give you guys some information on the Master of Creative Writing and answer any initial questions you guys have. And then we'll pass over to a little bit of a discussion between the alumni students and myself and Jane, just to give you some context on what the alumni students did while they were studying and what they've done now that they're finished. And then we will pass over to you guys. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, do pop them in that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to answering them at the end of our presentation. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and owners of this land. They have nurtured this land for over 60,000 years. They've nurtured the land, the waters, and the community. So we pay our respect to elders both past, present, and emerging. So just take the time now to acknowledge that the country you're on. So I'll now pass over to Jane to begin her presentation.
Thanks, Ella, and hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. Ella, can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is do a quick overview of the structure and study modes in the units. You're very welcome to email me, of course, to look at Course Finder and the handbook and explore all of this information in more detail. But I'm going to talk to just some of the main questions that people often have about this very wonderful course that we've been offering for many, many years, the Master of Creative Writing. So one of the really important and attractive things for people is how flexible our course is in terms of how we offer it. So for students who are wanting to study online, which is the majority of our students, this gives a lot of flexibility because you can be anywhere in Australia or indeed studying from overseas. And as long as you've got stable internet, you can access the full course. And most of the creative writing students are studying that way. We don't do, also very, very occasionally, but basically we don't do synchronous classes. So it's all asynchronous. So that means you can log in at any time that it suits you. You can join in discussions. So obviously if somebody has posted a discussion, they might have posted something the day before or an hour before, and then you're responding to it. So people are kind of logging in during the week. And then sometimes there's sort of busy times and you'll discover that you're online at the same time as someone else. It's a very friendly kind of community. Of course, with that flexibility, you need to be the kind of person who can structure your time. But, you know, the other thing, of course, is if say you've got work or family commitments that keep changing, then this flexibility enables you to work around those other changes in your life. We also always have a core group of students who really want to study on campus, and most of our units have the class option, which we offer in the evenings because most of our students are working or have, you know, daytime family or care commitments. And so we have those classes in the evening for that reason. And depending on how many people, we'll have them weekly or fortnightly. But we are a very online university. We have fantastic digital technologies. So whether you're studying online or internally, we'll always be using our very user-friendly, richly resourced iLearn websites. Of course, the other thing is you can study part-time or full-time, and you can move between part-time and full-time and different rates of that, you know, from one session to another. So commonly, a lot of students will start with just 1 or 2 units to get a feel of the workload and how things are going. And then they may have, say, half a year where they've got more time available to them to work, and they'll increase their study load, and then they might decrease it again. All of that is very easy to do. I'll just mention that each of the slides has some great works by various alumni of ours, and Claire, who you're going to be meeting today, who's online now, is the joint editor of the School magazine, which is probably the longest running magazine being published for schools. It's an amazing job, and she'll be talking to you about that later. Ella, could you go on to the next slide? Thank you. So the structure is really simple. There's 4 required units in the core zone. These cover a kind of diverse and rich range of writing techniques, wonderful selection of readings, and a very varied range of assessments. So the creative writing seminar, narrative fundamentals, as you can tell, that's like a really excellent unit to begin with. We, in that unit, you can write in different modes, but most people are writing, short narrative, long narrative, or poetry. We've got the writing creative nonfiction, which is a fantastic introduction to creative nonfiction, such as memoir, the personal essay, works like that. Short form writing, again, like the title says, we really explore the crafts and techniques involved in composing short works. The professional context project is a unit that people best do at the end towards the end of their degree, because you're kind of gathering together all the sort of skills and knowledges that you've acquired and developing a professionally relevant project for yourself. It might be making a podcast, it might be writing a journal article, it might be going out into industry and writing an article based on interviews you've done with publishers. Students do all sorts of amazing things in that unit. Ella, we might go on to the next slide. Thank you. And then in the next half of the structure, the flexible zone, this is where you choose 4 units from the 5 that are on offer. So word essentials, prose and poetry. This extends on the other core units, though you can do it, in your first year. So there's a certain amount of mixing and matching in terms of your schedule. Focuses on that. Writing the past, building new worlds. This is looking with a little bit more structure at if somebody's writing historical fiction or speculative fiction, for instance, or nonfiction, what are the techniques for world building, for research, and so on that can really enhance your writing. The digital creative writing and publishing projects, a lot of students they think, nah, this is not for me, but actually this is one of everybody's favorite units. People do amazing creative work in this unit, exploring what's possible in interactive writing. Special study unit 1, this is another unit which encourages you to develop your creative writing project, but learning how to do really excellent, thorough research. It's a really nicely structured and staged unit that you'll come out of it with many, many more research skills. For some students who have very publishable projects and have been excelling in their studies, there's the option of the manuscript project. That's a supervision unit. Because it involves one-on-one supervision, it's not available to all students, but we're confident that all the other electives and core units are incredibly rich and fascinating. So even for people who don't do manuscript project, they'll certainly come away with thousands of words written. Many, like if you're working as a short story writer or you're working on a novel in, chapter by chapter, across these units, you'll be able to really develop your craft, develop your technique, enjoy the writing workshops where you meet other students, where you get to discuss your work in progress, you give feedback, you learn editing skills, you learn how to talk to people about writing using a technical language so that you can actually share succinctly and clearly what your thoughts are. At the same time, across all these units, you get exposed to a really rich and varied range of readings, which for most people, they explore reading and reading as a writer in ways that they've never done before. And in terms of feedback that I get from students, even though you know students enroll really focused on their writing, understandably, this really rich and exciting and deepened experience of reading as a writer is a very transformative part of the Master in Creative Writing. And these sort of skills and experiences you take with you, you know, for the rest of your learning life as you write and as you develop as a writer and as a reader. Next slide, I think. So just moving from that to the course outcomes, and I guess for our graduates, and I guess because the range of skills and capabilities that you develop through this course are much broader than most students' core desire, which is to write, to be amongst people who love writing and want to talk about it all the time, who love reading and want to do more of that and to be able to talk about it. But actually, the course gives you a whole range of skills. And as we see our graduates take this multivarious range off into really interesting careers. So students, some are recent graduates from an undergraduate program. Many of our students are people who've been working for some years. So they might, in terms of how they go on as graduates, they might be deepening a career that they've already begun. Some are changing direction completely and they're moving, for instance, from teaching into editing, or they might be, as I said before, deepening their career. They might be an English studies teacher in a secondary school who also wants to, you know, do their own creative writing and be a writer at the same time as understanding how to teach creative writing more deeply. Our graduates go in so many different directions. Of course, for arts people, creative people, we do often have portfolio careers where we add together parts of our interests and our skills, and we build quite a rich career out of that. And Cassie and Claire will be able to talk about that process. I think we'll probably get into that a bit. And again, on each slide from our webinar, I've given you some information about some of the wonderful graduates from our program. I could have included many, many more. And I think now it'd be great to talk directly to Claire and Cassie, if that's okay, Ella.
Absolutely.
Great.
Alrighty, so what we'll do now, guys, is just have a discussion between the two graduates that we have here today, just going over some general questions that they maybe had when they began the Master of Creative Writing, and some stuff that maybe you guys will resonate with as well. While we're going through, if anything does resonate with you guys and it ends up popping up more questions, just drop them in that Q&A function below. And once we've done some introductions with the two graduates, then we'll get to your questions. So do feel free to drop them below at the moment, or as we're talking, or as we begin the Q&A. So we will answer as many as we can live. And then if we do miss any of them, you guys will get a text response. So just depending on the kind of question, you will all get an answer though. So I might just start with Claire and Cassie. Would you guys just like to introduce yourselves and talk about maybe what got you into the Master of Creative Writing? Claire, if you wanted to go first.
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Claire Katakouzenos. I'm a Greek-Australian writer in Sydney and also an editor. I currently work at the New South Wales Department of Education's The School Magazine, which Jane mentioned before. What interested me about the Master of Creative Writing was that I was an undergraduate student at Macquarie with Jane Messer in my last semester of my third year. And the coursework for the Masters I really wanted to do just to further educate myself about creative writing, and then eventually to get into an arts job that I really wanted. I was looking at an editorial job or teaching, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to do both or one or the other. And then working at Macquarie University as well opened up a lot of different opportunities for me with the coursework of the Masters of Creative Writing. Especially the manuscript project was a huge thing for me to do that I love doing.
Awesome. And Cassie, for you?
Hi everyone, so I'm Cassie Cochrane. As you can see, I'm one of the more mature students that Jane mentioned before. So when I came in to do my Masters of Creative Writing, I had already been working in the performing arts for a really long time. I'd been working as a secondary performing arts teacher. I'd been working in theatre as a performer and writer for theatre and in film and TV for quite some years. But I got to sort of my early 40s and I was like, I need to upskill. And I had ambitions to write a novel and not just write a novel, but to just generally get more of a contemporary grasp on where literature is headed, because it's, I mean, at the moment in the 21st century, there's just so much going on and it's constantly in change. So I found the course just really, really fantastic. I actually wrote a key line here, which I said, it's like a facelift for your creativity. That's what I put. I haven't had a facelift. Yeah, so really for me, it was a total immersion. I had lots of fears, and that's one of the questions that you posed, what fears did you have before approaching the course? And those fears were to do with technology and academic writing and all sorts of things. But just getting to where Claire was mentioning, where I've got to since graduating. So I've had some great success and have developed a really good discipline with writing. So I would consider myself now to be a writer. Most of my bread and butter is in teaching drama and voice and working as a consultant in the performing arts. So, but I've had some great successes. I've had things published. I had a literary agent, wonderful. And I have had my novel manuscript win some awards. So, these are all wonderful boosts to confidence. So yeah, I mean, we can take questions from you, Ella, as to where we go from here, but yeah, awesome. So much to say.
Yeah.
Just comment on that, just that last bit of what Cassie was saying. The Masters is, it was really nice to hear you say that that the idea of the facelift and bringing you into the 21st century, but you do the Masters and it takes however long, 1 or 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how many units you're doing. Writing takes a lifetime, and what I noticed, a lot of graduates, they keep working, if they're tenacious and passionate, they keep working on their writing. Success doesn't come instantly for most people. I can see a lot of nodding there from Claire and Cassie. It takes patience and tenacity, and it's great because that's you both are writers, because you do the writing and you have the patience and tenacity and you just keep at it, and that's what writers have to do.
Exactly right. Ella, did you have a question for us, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting already. You can see that you both did the same course and you actually were studying at the same time, but you've taken it in such different directions. So that's a really cool introduction for you guys, just to see the flexibility that the master definitely has. So Claire, you kind of touched on it, but when you guys were studying, what would you say a highlight of the Master of Creative Writing was? What's something that's really stuck with you now as your career as a writer?
For me, it would be doing that manuscript project. I had a one-on-one with my supervisor, Claire Bouchel, and it was just fantastic. I had a whole year set out, or was it 6 months? No, I'm pretty sure it was a whole year set out where I could just dedicate myself to writing my novel. So lots of chapter writing. That was one of the massive highlights from the creative writing course, and also a lot of the networking I had with the students as well as with Dr. Jane Messer. But even after doing the creative writing course, just to touch on, I then pursued trying to get my manuscript published. You learn a lot of things about the publishing industry. the book industry, where it's at, especially with the YA market, because that's where my book currently sits, and all the different feedback that you get from publishers and editors. But definitely the manuscript project was the massive highlight for me, as well as the short story form of writing. I really wish I had done the non-fiction writing, but I had run out of my 2 years capacity, so couldn't do it at the time, but I would have highly done it. Yeah.
Awesome. And Cassie, for you, did you have a different experience, or did you like the same kind of subjects as Claire?
I think every writer is going to take, you're going to pick and choose. It's like having a big lolly jar, because there's so many different things that you can pick and choose to your tastes, basically. But what's really good about it is that you have to do a certain amount of units. So you might think, oh God, literary theory, that doesn't sound great. But you're going to get a huge amount from courses that maybe at first, like Jane mentioned, the digital one, that people maybe aren't always going, oh, put my hand up for that. But then you suddenly go, oh, okay, this is what it is. And you kind of, you learn to love a lot of other stuff and find out a lot that you didn't think you would like. The manuscript project was fantastic, but there, across the broad spectrum, there was just so much, because when you're writing, you need to read really broadly. You can't just go, I want to write historical fiction, so I'm going to read historical fiction. You actually need to be reading nonfiction. You need to be reading newspapers. You need to be reading everything, not, YA, speculative. You need to really read across a whole lot of genres. So it was really good from that perspective of just throwing out different authors at us all the time. And the pressure was huge. But as Jane said, one of the really wonderful things was that you can work to your own timetable. So I was actually working full-time when I started it. I think halfway through, pulled back on some of my working hours so that I could get more done, because I put the pressure on myself. I wanted to do really well. So you totally get out what you put in. And the teaching was really absolutely top notch. I mean, obviously being older, I've been through 3 different universities, and there can be some patchy teaching and lecturing, but the Macquarie department is first rate. The feedback that you get is absolutely first rate. Jane's incredibly embracing of everyone, really great with keeping you in the loop, communication, and so I loved everything. In fact, looking at the units coming through now, I'm like, oh, wish I'd had that one.
Yeah, I know.
We don't do literary theory anymore. With all the changes, we kind of recalibrated. I think the digital creative writing has kind of probably moved that. We're sort of more into applied creative writing research, like learning research skills rather than literary theory. We're still doing narrative studies. We're still learning about focalization and time shifts and structure and so on. But yeah, there's been a few, courses change. So
yeah, that's great. I think the literary theory was really hardcore theory, and that was great. Real at the coalface. But the digital stuff sounds good.
Yeah.
And I think just the workshopping. So for me, you're working from home, you're working online, but you still feel like you're really in this kind of cohort, and you're having a lot of feedback. Claire and I had a lot of toing and throwing.
And very good constructive feedback as well from everyone.
So you learn how to construct your feedback. You also develop huge amounts of confidence, because you have to be thick-skinned when you start putting your work out there.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, some people go in there thinking, oh, I'm brilliant, and put out stuff, and then they go, oh, actually, maybe my stuff isn't that great. And other people are like, oh, I don't know, I'm so, ooh. And then they realize, they gain confidence and realize, actually, you grow a thicker skin and you become a lot braver sharing your work with everyone.
The one unit that I really loved, that I forgot to mention, was the poetry unit. I'm pretty sure we did that together, Cassie.
I wanted to mention that too.
Oh, that was great. We had Dr. Marcel Freeman for that, and it was just, I never thought that I was a poet, but there was an inner poet in me that I didn't know about, and still until I was able to start exploring all of those like hybrid identity, like cultural displacement issues that you might see when you grow up, or just how you're feeling. It was actually really eye-opening, and I'm actually a poet now as well, which I don't call myself that all the time. There's an inner poet in everyone, so I highly recommend. I'm pretty sure there's a part of the course that you can do poetry as well, Jane.
No, we've embedded that very carefully in 2 units, but of course people can work across all the units, probably even 3 units. I do want to say something about that, the range of genres. It's not just that we had this sort of random smorgasbord idea. We do believe pedagogically that our role is to expose and encourage our students to experience a range of kinds of texts and to themselves at least once have an opportunity to explore different kinds of major genres, the digital writing, different forms of poetry. It might be narrative poetry or it might be non-narrative poetry, short fiction, the opportunity to write longer works of fiction. And this is partly because myself and the other writing teachers, we know that in contemporary writers need to be agile. You need to be able to move between genres. There's a lot of convergence in different kinds of media. It's constantly taking place. I don't think I need to, lecture anyone about that. And so even lots of people come, they go, I've got this novel in me and it's all I want to do. Actually, they discover that they do actually want to write more than just that novel. And they enjoy learning different ways of writing. And then they discover that working in these other genres is actually helping them write that passion project, whether it be the novel or the collection of poems.
Absolutely. For example, the creative nonfiction, which is so huge at the moment, memoir. And so the poetry has a knock-on effect because you're actually working with figurative language. And that absolutely plays into that genre as well. So they all kind of merge, they all have a place, and they all kind of weave their way into your work. Yep. It's really important to dip your toe into all of those different aspects, genres.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how all of you touched on the fact that you had some maybe almost preconceived notions of what you thought you would like, and you got in, and like Claire said, that unlocked the inner poet in you, and now that's something that you're pursuing now that you're a graduate writer. So that's really amazing that the course has so much diversity in that you can explore those things and dip your toe in the water of things you weren't sure you were going to like, but it's really paid off in the future for all of you guys. So that's a really great point to make. So just before we get to the Q&A, I think Cassie, you touched on it in my first question. Did you guys have any big fears or unknowns coming into the course, or any advice you'd give to people thinking about coming into the course, things you wish you would have known? Cassie, if you wanted to start us off.
Yeah, so I did mention that coming from having not done any study for some maybe decades, I was a little, trepidatious, let's say, about academic writing and about the technologies involved. So that was fine. I needn't have worried about that because we're learning all those skills on the hop, gathering those skills. And one thing I wanted to mention there was that there's opportunities, so many opportunities out there, as Claire and I found, for example, with the Macquarie magazine, Jane.
Yes.
So you can jump on board, you can submit your work to that, but you can also put your hand up and be an editor. And that was where that's where Claire probably got her first kind of passion for editing.
Yes.
And for me, it really helped me just in terms of formatting technology, that kind of thing. So that was really useful. But in terms of other fears, I've noted down, you go and thinking, well, maybe I'm going to be really crap at this. Maybe my ambition for being a writer of some description, I'm going to go through this and I'll just go, oh, no, you're lame. But no, you work away, you learn your skills, you get your feedback, and you get back on the horse and you keep working and you keep working. And the only way we all know that you can get better is by failure. So you are just always constantly remolding, reshaping. So that kind of thick skin that you build is just, you have to have it as a writer, because you're going to get knockback after knockback after knockback. You have to be so persistent and so resilient. And this course really gives you that kind of foundation of developing those resilient skills. And
yes, definitely. It's all about having a backbone, especially with the publishing industry, and just persevering, having a lot of resilience. And just to add on, a lot of the time is about being flexible as well with the kind of information that you get, how you look at things. A lot of fears that I had at the beginning was just about like self-doubt. Am I good enough, or why not me? So with Macquarie, I really engaged in a lot of the resources that they had to offer with the campus. So I worked at the student publication magazine Grape Shot as a copy editor. And then I was a volunteer editor at the Macquarie Journal, where Cassie and I also worked with each other. And then the following year, I then had a paid internship at the Macquarie from Dr. Jane Messer, which was a massive eye-opener as well for me. And a lot of those skills that I learned from Macquarie, working with WordPress, a management software system, is actually what I do now in my job at the school magazine. It was one of the highlights of my job was that I was offered it more for my digital skills as well, because they were transitioning the school magazine from the print version to an online version. So we needed a lot of web-based text. We're hoping to expand into transmedia storytelling. And it's also just publishing more videos and audio recordings that we're trying to offer to an educational level as well. So again, a lot of the skills that I developed was from Macquarie University and from doing the Masters of Creative Writing course and all the resources again that they offer.
Yeah, and you, I have to say, were so wonderful for me to have as a sidekick when we were working, because your technological skills were so much better than mine. So there you go. Very good.
Thank you.
I think that's something really great that you touched on, Claire, is the resources that we have at Macquarie, no matter if it's a Master of Creative Writing specific, or if any of you guys tuning in are with undergrad with us, we do really have a range of resources, and those practical placements, like you talked about, Claire, really open up your eyes while you were still at uni. So getting that experience while you're still a student and you have the support around you, that's something that I think sets Macquarie apart quite widely. The last question I'll pose to you guys before we get to the viewers' questions is, what are any further career aspirations you guys have? Or Jane, maybe you can tune in if any of your students have taken a different path than these two graduates have. What are some careers that students could have coming out of this degree?
Well, as I was saying before, for some people, a lot of people want to get published as a writer. And it sets you up well on that path, but it's a long path, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there's only a few people who've come straight out of the masters and bang, get published. Most, it's a building block, and then you keep writing and work towards it. We talk about that as we go along through the course. We have a creative writing hub, which is an online site that I've created now, where I share lots of information about competition opportunities, fellowship opportunities. We talk about practicing to the kind of things you need to do to develop your writing career while also actually doing the writing. Because, of course, there's no point having ideas about being a writer when you're not actually doing the writing. So doing the writing is the most important thing. But people do really diverse things. It depends. So others, we have a lot of teachers who are writers and who either want to develop as teachers or move out. We have people who really are in convergent media kind of areas. So they might be writing fiction, but working as a film director, or they might be like Rebecca Greensill, who's on one of the slides. She was writing narrative and writing theatre, but she's actually become a film director who's now won awards. Wow. So it's really quite diverse. We're really happy to talk to students on a one-to-one basis about their career and where they're trying to head, because then you can kind of give that one-on-one feedback. And we've got an amazing careers service at Macquarie, but your teachers, such as me, we're also happy to just have that one-on-one conversation. Sometimes people are working in marketing and PR and journalism, and that's a very particular kind of very brief oriented writing, and they want to explore their creativity and break out of all the kind of rules that they've learned within those industries, and then go on to keep working in that, but to become published creative writers. It is very, very, a lot of people actually aren't, they'd be happy to get published, but actually they're really focused on the process. They've been writing for years. They want to be with a group. They want to talk to people about their passion, because it's not the same. Your family or friends who don't write, it just isn't the same. And I did a master's in creative writing many, many years ago. So I've had that workshop experience. So that's why I teach it. I know how wonderful it can be, because, all those people interested in rugby, there's thousands of them. They're easy to find. They can find each other. It's hard to find writers who want to talk about writing. And that's one of the starting points. And we've got a lot of graduates and so actually they tend to kind of somehow bump into each other over the years. So there's sort of some post course communities happening as well.
That's amazing. And I think you touched on a really great point there, Professor, that you are really being taught by people who are still in the industry yourself. You've done a Master of Creative Writing, so you're taught by industry leaders and industry professionals. So you really are getting the best education, the best insight while you're studying.
Yeah, no, all of us are publishing writers. We have written books, we are writing books, we will continue, we hope, to publish books. We have guest writers come in, but we're all, definitely, we're professionals.
Absolutely.
As well as pedagogically informed and all that.
Which is very important. I think I might pass over to the Q&A now. So we do have quite a lot of questions, which is great. So thank you guys so much for sending those in. If you do have any more, feel free to just keep on sending them through. So Cassie, I might send this one to you because you touched on it a little bit before. One of our students is asking, how important is it to have daily writing habits before the course starts? Does the course help develop this? You were kind of touched on the impact of reading really widely. So is that the same case with writing? Is that what you found?
I think that most people coming to the course will probably have already been writing, but how much they've been writing, I don't know. I think a lot of people say, yes, you have to write every day. And in an ideal world, you would write every day. You do have to develop a discipline for writing. For me, I'm a person who likes to get up early in the morning and write. And at the moment, with the way my work is, I usually do sort of like a full day Friday and maybe a full day Sunday. And I start early in the morning and I just work my way through, take a break, turn everything off. It is very hard, with all the technology around to build that discipline, but you've just got to switch it all off. And focus on getting on with the writing. So yes, I did write quite a bit beforehand. I'd gather bits and pieces, little patchworks of things. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a good point, that the students can come from a range of backgrounds, but something I'm sure that you all have in common in a range of different capacities is a love and a passion and an interest for writing. So I think having that established definitely helps, but of course the degree helps you facilitate that in a more practical way. Maybe Associate Professor, I'll pass this one over to you. We have an interstate student and they're just curious if the resources and research materials for the subjects are all available online, or will they need access to our real library at Macquarie, or are they able to do it all online?
Yeah, no, it's a fully online course. All our materials are offered digitally. And the library is fantastic. We've got really great ways of accessing all those materials, but external students can borrow physical books and materials from the library, and the library will post them to you, and then you post them back. So yeah, there's no disadvantage there.
Awesome. And it's very, very flexible in that way. Professor, I might just follow up with another one for you. A couple of students are asking about the creative portfolio. Is there a certain way that they have to submit this? Someone's wondering if it could be in a film format, or is there a certain way you'd expect this to be submitted as a student?
Well, we've got a brochure which, if you email me, or it might be available from the site, but certainly if you email me, I'll just send it to you. So with the creative portfolio, we're looking to see what kind of writing you've been doing independently beforehand. And so it's just a small selection. If it's a film, obviously, because we're basically text-based, it would be preferable to see a treatment and a script, and maybe some examples of work in other genres. I'm happy, I have lots of discussions with people one-on-one about what might be suitable for their creative portfolio. So, feel free to email me.
Absolutely. Claire, I think you and Cassie both touched on this, but one of our students is curious, how would they interact with classmates if everyone's studying online? Do you come into the degree and you're just completely isolated, or is there crossover with the people that you're studying with? Claire, if you wanted to start us off.
Yeah, so I was an external student as well. So I did everything online. With the workshops, you go in, you log into, I think it's iLearn, and you just, comment, you download people's work, you read it, and then you place comments, and then you can check them as well. You can also meet up with each other as well on an online hub if you want to do that or to organize that. It just depends on what kind of relationships you build with everybody that you have. But the workshopping is just really great. It's just a lot of good constructive feedback, and just feedback that sometimes you wouldn't even expect. That's quite a surprise, or there's a little, there might be some little pet hates that you don't realize that you're doing that somebody will catch up on, or there's something that you've missed that you can then elaborate on in your actual writing. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Cassie, did you have any different experiences, or just kind of?
No, I mean, it was really great because you basically, at the start of your course, you have a little introduction. So everyone sort of signs in and introduces themselves. And then you just keep this chat going, basically have forums where you share and feedback. So there was a lot of communication between everyone. You did feel like you got a good sense of who everyone was.
Yeah.
So it was great from that perspective. Yeah.
We're very conscious, like with our online teaching, we're very experienced. I've also done formal study in best practice in online teaching. So we're aware that people, when they're first meeting each other online, or for that matter in class, that we have strategies to break the ice, to make people feel comfortable, to not feel like they're overwhelmed by like 40 people. We have small group discussion chat forums. So people start to get to know each other. And sometimes I have students say, oh, in my next unit, would it be all right if, Claire and Cassie and I can be in the same workshop group again, because we were working so well together before? And it's like, yeah, sure, of course. So, we really are very aware that people want to make connections and feel comfortable and not be intimidated. Look, students sometimes just ring up or email and say, I'm feeling really anxious. Well, that's fine. We talk about that. We get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being online doesn't mean that you have to be isolated. It's a different kind of interaction, but it's really, really well facilitated.
Yeah, the way that our forums are set up, they're really it's very easy to follow the threads and to feel included and to feel like you genuinely are communicating with people.
And there's lively discussion and there's room for banter. It's all out there. It's very good.
Amazing. Yeah. Professor, I might send this one to you. One of our students is already working in the industry, working in media and press, and they're just wondering if there's any support in regards to career opportunities while they're doing the course. So for people who are already in the industry, are there any additional career opportunities while you're studying?
Not quite. I'm not quite sure what that means. Do you mean to change? Do you think they mean to change their career, or
maybe just any other opportunities? So if they're already in
like internships?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So, look, we have. I mean, firstly, with students whom we know, we often provide. We'll work as referees, and so on. If we know the student and we can vouch for them and so on, through the professional context project unit, which is Ingle 8075, students can organise to do an internship for credit for that unit. And there are various opportunities through Macquarie University's career service and career hub, where you could do, not necessarily for credit in our masters, but certainly there are lots of internship and other career opportunities offered by Macquarie, who is in contact with many employers. Some, we've worked with for many years, but new employers and opportunities are always arising all the time. Macquarie's, we're, obviously increasingly focused on our students' interest in employability and developing a really enriched and a career that they really want to follow.
Absolutely. And I think Claire touched on it as well when she was working in the editor for Grapeshot, our Macquarie magazine, that you might not have thought that that was going to end up with you being an editor after you graduated. Exactly. But those opportunities that just pop up while you're at uni can really spark something in you.
And thanks, Ella, for I've forgotten about the Quarry. So the Quarry is our student journal. We started in 2012. It's now done 17 issues. Claire was an amazing volunteer and then intern editor. And that, I mean, that was really helpful for you for getting the work that you and developing the career that you've had. And other students have worked on the Quarry. We usually do a couple of issues a year, 2 to 3 issues a year. And we've had maybe, I guess, 40 different people involved, maybe more, learning editing skills, using that as part of their portfolio for their jobs. We've also got From the Lighthouse, which is our podcast series, which has been incredibly successful. It's a literary podcast. It's a bit about creative writing, but more about books and reading. Students are very welcome to pitch an idea and be part of that. We've got 2SCR-FM. One of our master students is a producer there, and also has his own podcast series. There's, like, if that's what you want to do, there are opportunities, and we're happy to, you know, talk to you and you know, assist you in kind of doing that.
Awesome. I might just follow up another one for you, Associate Professor, if that's all right. One of our students are curious, is there an amount of students that get accepted every year, or something that can make students' applications stand out to you guys?
Well, it's sort of not that black and white, and I'll just explain why. So usually what happens is that a student needs to put the creative portfolio together. So often I'll have some email exchange. So there are some students, or some applicants rather, who, when we have that conversation, turns out that they're not really ready for the course. Maybe they would like to do some creative writing, but they never have done any creative writing. So there, what we talk about is doing, if they want to study online and just do a few units and just sort of ease their way into it, we've got undergraduate units in creative writing, which are really introductory. So once, in a sense, so they don't end up not applying formally, so they don't get knocked back, which is lovely, because it's much better to not be rejected. So I would say that the acceptance rate is pretty good if you're looking at the people who have already had a conversation.
Absolutely. I'm sure that's quite reassuring to students.
Yeah, I think it's better to I would rather communicate with people, and, you know, they can ask some questions, I can answer some questions, and then I can make a recommendation. And people who've done our undergraduate pathway, that doesn't mean a whole degree. That's like maybe doing 3 or 4 units, doing a literature unit, doing some creative writing units, getting, particularly if you've come from business studies or engineering or, I don't know, whatever, you know, something, science or something, you've got no idea necessarily what it means to study in the arts and humanities and literature and writing and media. It's a really, really very foreign place. It's much better to build up your confidence and sort of get those skills developing, and then have a portfolio that you that other people have perhaps read, and you understand that it's quite good and you feel quite confident about it, and you send that in, and that is a good pathway into postgraduate study. For other people, they've been writing for years, and, you know, it's a different matter. And, you know, you read, they've got a promising voice, they've got some really interesting ideas, they have really, you know, great knack for structure, you know, or, you know, the language might be a bit boring, but gee, they've got some great characters here. You know, we're looking for voice, for promise, for a passion for writing, you know, those sorts of things. Yeah. And then we kind of look at that and look at what their studies have been, you know, and we go from there. So I think people should feel confident to make contact and to apply.
For sure. Claire and Cassie, I might send this one over to you guys and see if you guys had any different experiences while studying. Cassie, I might send it to you first. How long did it take you to complete your degree? Are you happy with how long it took you, or would you change it if you could do it over?
So I did mine over 2 years because I was working, and as I said earlier, I did pull back a bit on work, I think in the second year, because I just needed a bit more room to really focus on the units. But the 2 years was great, and it was really doable, because with the completion of the workshop activities and the forum responses that are part of the assessment on the course, you are given certain, like a few days or maybe a week to complete some of those responses. So if you're working and you finish a full day of work, and then you can come home and have your dinner, and in the evening you can sit down and read and write. So it didn't feel super stressful doing it over the 2 years for me. But as Jane said, people can do it over 3-4 years. No, I was really pleased with the time frame that I completed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with me, I did it for 2 years as well. But I was working 3 casual jobs, just to, living at home, working 3 casual jobs. Again, one was with Grapeshot, one was with Macquarie University's Wellbeing Department, just as an academic skills coach, and also working at Coles just casually. The great thing about the degree with the flexibility was that I could have all those jobs and just, do different things to get my, stuff out there, and also just writing at home and then just doing my coursework that I needed to get done. Especially the second year, I needed to just, sit down and do my manuscript project, and I had that flexibility of my working hours and everything like that, which was great.
That's awesome. And for both of you, both being so busy while you were studying, that's really great that you could balance that really easily. I have a follow-up question that kind of backs onto that. Is there an amount of hours that you set aside each week for this course in particular, or did you just kind of go with the flow and see what was needed that week, and adjust your work accordingly?
Yeah, so I think I had a bit of flexibility with that, depending on what the requirements were in any given week. There's a lot of readings, and that does take time. It takes time to read and absorb what you're reading. So it's probably quite a good idea to get an idea of what free spaces, compartments you have during the week to put aside for that reading. But then obviously if you're working to deadlines with, say, workshop submissions and so on, then you're really going to have to maybe do a couple of late night writing stints and things like that. But yeah, I think just try and be organized with your time, and should make it work.
Yeah, as long as you get the structure, you'll also get your workshop times. I think it's twice. You present your work and you get feedback, and you also have to give people feedback every week, which is great. Again, like Cassie said, it's just about being extremely organized and just meeting those deadlines. But again, you'll work out your own schedule and your timetable and what works for you. And again, sometimes there might be, a morning or an afternoon where you'll be working on an assessment task or a creative writing piece. But again, it all just depends on what you want to do as part of your time frame. And you'll also know when there are workshops that you're supposed to be available for, and when you can also listen to lectures, because the lectures are recorded as well, and you can listen to them.
A really good strategy at the beginning of each unit is to look at what the deadlines are for everything, to look at what your particular workshop schedule is, and basically plan. So, you've got the first 7 weeks of session, then we have a 2-week mid-session break, and then we have the next 5 weeks. And students who, like in life, who are organised and kind of put all that down, then look at how, their own life schedule fits and so on. You then, and I find students who as much as they can, given all the variabilities in life, dedicate time, plan for when they're going to study, manage it. Cassie, and Claire, since you guys have done the degree, we have reduced the content. We realised that the workload was a little bit much, so it's pretty manageable these days. Ella, I just was looking at a question that I think is an interesting one. There was one about the speculative fiction from JNIGRO.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So we do. I mean, we read speculative fiction. Lots of students writing sci-fi, fantasy, and speculative fiction. lots of writing that. They're writing it for adults, they're writing it for YA readers. Some of the readings that are included have to do with speculative fiction, and we work across all genres. I mean, you know, whether you're doing short form writing, short fiction, poetry, well, I guess you can't really have speculative fiction if you're doing non-fiction, but unless you were writing about science. But yeah, I think people interested in fantasy and speculative fiction will find those genres addressed. We don't focus on any in any one genre in particular. We sort of we start with, we're just reading and we're looking at generic issues that affect all fiction: character, setting, time management, structure, pacing. It doesn't matter what genre you're writing in. Those things, you know, use of words, the use of the ear, the rhythm of the sentence, you know, these are important things, whatever you're writing.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have a few minutes left, so I might just ask a really quick final question. So for each of you, if you had one piece of advice for prospective students that you wish you knew, what would it be? So Claire, do you want to start us off with a quick piece of advice?
Again, with what I did is that it's just about taking a lot of initiative. But the one thing I'd also, again, just recommend is just taking aboard all those resources that Macquarie does offer. Again, network, talk to your lecturers, they're there to help you. They've got great knowledge, insightful knowledge, great work experience as well that you can get to do as well. And there's internships out there. So the one thing that I really wish I had done, this was in my undergraduate year, not really my postgraduate, but I really wish that I had started working in an office or just having that, you know, work experience working in an office. Luckily with my editorial work, I was able to engage in that in my postgraduate degree. So again, Macquarie's resources, Grapeshot, the Quarry e-journal, a lot of that happened with the Quarry was from talking to Jane Messer and engaging with our lecturers.
Awesome. Cassie, did you have anything else that you'd like to give advice for our prospective students?
I was going to say, you know, grasp all the opportunities as well, because there are a lot of opportunities, like with the Quarry, for example, which I really thought was a great thing to do. And I think just work hard at it. Writing is really hard. It's really hard. So I would say just push yourself, and you're going to love it, because you know the challenge of it. It's very rewarding. And so read widely, get into it, push yourself hard, and don't be complacent. Push yourself harder, work harder. I always tell myself work harder.
Absolutely. So just to wrap up this afternoon, thank you guys so much for all of your questions. We do have a few that we didn't get to answering live. So what will happen is you will all get an answer to your questions. We will just email you a response after this webinar has concluded. So thank you guys all for putting in so many questions. Like Associate Professor Jane Messer has mentioned a few times, she is more than welcome to answer any of your specific questions by email. So her email is in that chat box at the bottom of your screen. It's just jane.messer@mq.edu.au. So do forward any of those questions, or if you guys are interested in starting this course in the future, she'll definitely be more than happy to answer any of those questions. And just to conclude, I'll show you guys this slide. So if you do want any more information, feel free to book a one-on-one personal consult with someone at Macquarie. The website for that is just www.go2.mq.edu.au/consultations. So there is a range of ways for you guys to get any answers to your questions. This one-on-one consult, emailing our associate professor, who, as you can tell, is very quite versed and very knowledgeable in this topic, so I'm sure she'll be able to give you any more clarification that you need. And we will be emailing all of you guys whose questions we didn't get to this afternoon. So that has concluded our webinar. If our guests, you'd all just like to say a farewell to prospective students, sorry. And thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Right. Thank you for having us.
It was lovely to meet you all.
Good luck with everything.
Good luck, guys. Thank you.
Look forward to hearing from you.